I don't know if you know or not, but there is this band. They're really cool. You should check them out. They're called Galneryus, if you want to look them up. But what a coincidence, you could actually just stay here and listen with us to the next song of the new album, which is called To the Last Breath. A very dramatic title, by the way. And that's like one other thing I really appreciate about this prog genre in general, that they're sometimes going really over the top when it comes to lyrical, textual stuff. I also have to think about titles, of course, like Ultimate Sacrifice, That's really, extreme and over the top if you think about it. Yeah, but anyway, what else do we have today? Added to our collection of suspicious phallic devices, we have here a new microphone. I hope you can see it. That thing is really heavy. I hope it improves the quality a bit. If not, that's probably rather due to my mixing skills or lack thereof. But anyway, we have to see if this works out. Also, which is kind of funny, we have this little whey protein shaker thingy here. I mean, why I would need to consume whey protein would be hosting a whole nother set of questions. But just wanted to mention, this stuff has like iced tea flavor, and it actually tastes like iced tea, which is good, I suppose. But, it generates much more foam and pressure than it actually should. And if you're actually just shaking it, it literally just explodes. With a "that's what she said" label under it, like literally it freaking explodes. You kind of have to be really cautious with this thing and open it up every once in a while. Well, anyway, that was enough personal trivia for today. Let's move on to the song, shall we? Whoa, that's extremely heroic. Is that another Yuki song? This reminds me extremely of Stradivarius. Like, I'm not a deep listener of Stradivarius, perhaps I've overdone some references during the reactions to the last album, but this reminds me very much of Stradivarius. That being said, the intro sound with the trumpets and all, this vibes really much like Yuki for me. I will be really interested if this is actually another song by his. I like the intro because it has this notion that it is kind of separate from the song. It is kind of separated from it. We can listen to it again later, which is a kind of cool thing they did there. Cool inclusion of the rock organ here. Interesting groove going on there. The little licks. Oh! Oh! I love that transition, that's really cool. Okay, they're blasting like their guts out on this chivalrous type of medieval sound. It has this, the chorus isn't just your typical catchy melodic speed metal chorus or whatever. It's kind of like, it starts off a bit like a classical church song type of, it vibes a bit like classical music in some sense. But then it later moves on to this more medieval type of sound. This, actually, I think that might be a pretty good choice because last album they kind of introduce this a bit folky sound, I suppose. And due to the licks, you know, in the licks shoe plays sometimes you kind of hear this, and also with certain rhythms and stuff. It kind of resembles a bit some songs we had there. So to me, it actually feels like a bit of a reconstruction of this type of sound, which also pushes some new boundaries, I think. While Whatever It Takes and In Water's Case is still running in my head, this song is just quite a bit more energetic than those. Whoa! Extended transition here. Whoa! Okay, so this actually, that was really cool because it feels like, you know, tumbling and falling or something. In that transition, we tumble into the extended transition, and from that extended transition, we just fall into the next section. Like, you're just kind of being dropped into there, which is really cool. Right, it's destabilizing here. And now you're just left with this. What's that? That bluesy keyboard sound. Oh, okay. That's very Yuki. That unison is very Yuki. Oh, very cool progression there. So this essentially, right, feels like In Water's Case Part 3, right? I think it's a trilogy at this point. We have 3 songs which utilize the sound. And yeah, like just a lot of stuff like this, you know? I think this is the most fusion type of sound we had throughout the album, and you just have to remember the last song. But all of those like chromatic runs and destabilizations of stuff, and just also how that was combined with the more classic heroic sound in the background with the chord progression and stuff. That was just really interesting how that was like fusion together there. I guess hence the name Fusion. This was an extremely cool solo section actually. We have to dip to this a bit later because there's a lot to unpack, I suppose. But for now, let's just keep going. I want to know how this continues. You have a lot of falling around type of stuff. The trumpets, so cool. They cooked with the vocals here. The closure sound here. Heavy drums. A little bit of evil tremolo there. I heard that. I hope this is like a teaser or some type of thing for the next song. That would be really cool. You know, this is typical what they usually use for evil hell type of stuff. It's falling down at the end of the song while it's starting off rather heroically and faithful, I would even say. Like faithful specifically because it somehow reminds me a bit of a church song in the way the melody is tame, right? It doesn't go for catchiness in the beginning, especially of the chorus. And then later it develops to something a bit more complex. But this is all in all extremely interesting. Like I think I have to peek right now. I don't want to speculate too much. Composer and lyricist is Yuki. So, okay. Praise about Yuki concerning this album is definitely legitimate so far. Especially his work during the last album was partially my highlight of the entire album. And here he seems to really expand on that sound and develop some and push some new ideas and stuff. Yeah, the overall sensation of the song is, as I've mentioned, it has a lot of this destabilizing sound, which is actually kind of characteristic for Yuki because, again, I don't know the theory behind this, but the way his songs harmonically move seems much more fluid than typical songs. It seems like the chords take much smaller steps, but they kind of create an interesting journey, which is oftentimes a bit confusing. This is also like, of course, mixed with a lot of like chromatic type of stuff he has there. But I think the mixture they've hit with this weird stuff and the melodic stuff, right, is hit very well in this song. So I'm really for a little picking session just to get some candy out of this. Already sounds... For the mixing, it's a bit further in the back, so it's a bit distant. It doesn't really sound like you're in it. It sounds a bit like it's your background music playing. A lot of like church type of sound. And then with the verse, you can kind of imagine there the action actually starts. Kind of mentally preparing, getting up this inner emotion, and then like whatever the story of the song starts. Pre-chorus, I guess. Just extremely cool transition. I can't even explain what they're doing there, but like they're going through 3 or 4 different moods in this one transition. Walling up. This is kind of what I'm talking about, right? This is how slowly this is moving up. It makes these very small steps, and those are always really interesting to me. That's basically precisely why I like, you know, Baroque music, for example. That music has these types of slow movements, while, you know, modern music has these more immediate chord progressions, I guess. How we're left with the calmness, but it still has this drive in the background. It kind of just takes you away to this next section. drama coming in. Appreciate the, you know, drum solo and stuff. So we remember this type of solo from Yuki, right? During some of the last songs. He returns a bit back to the motifs of the song. Really cool entry for sure. So he again plays a lot of classic stuff. Classic shoe stuff. Especially this upward run he had there. Very classic. This is probably my favorite part of the solo. Just help me remember for a second. So this is sound-wise, this of course sounds a lot like, you know, the solo of in Water's case, but there's a certain classical song this reminds me of. Can you help me like what this exactly sounds like? There's certain resemblance there, which I think works really well with the kind of digital synthetic sound we have there through the keyboard and stuff, which I find really enjoyable during this section. Love the progression, I don't know. And has a bit of a mysterious element as well in the end. Here it's maxing out on that actually. Love it. It's a literal roller coaster, you know. So, and then just in the end, we had a bit of interesting backing vocal stuff going on, which also was pretty cool and smooth. I like that. We had more, you know, awkward things they did with the vocals in the past, but this definitely worked really well. They know their shit at this point. I actually like this cheesy medieval sound in the melody as well, quite a bit. The storm going on here at the end. Coming in with the aggression, right? These heavy drums bring a bit of aggression in the end, and then this evil drop down into some kind of hole. This is kind of how it ends. So extremely exciting, a lot of different moves. It's a really complex journey here. Yeah, I think I said pretty much everything about this a lot of times by now. By the way, you know, it's 5.5 minutes, so it's for a Galneryus song rather short, but it still has this immensity longer songs of them usually have, because it squeezes this whole complex journey into this rather compact type of thing. Very interested how this stylistically will develop. I've also seen Alhambra is actually still active. You know, some people might be aware of that. You know, most of the band members are involved into other projects. One of Yuki's projects is a band called Alhambra. I've kind of seen this year or last year that they kind of released a new album. Is that correct? I haven't listened to it just for potentially reacting to it someday, right? But if they're still active, that would be kind of interesting because I sometimes reference this as well. And the sound he has in Alhambra is pretty similar to songs like this. Kind of interesting to see that development of his, I guess, and all the different ideas, and also how he separates those ideas potentially between Galneryus and other projects. So yeah, just wanted to mention that because it oftentimes reminds me a lot of that. And it's most of the times in Galneryus one of my highlights of the album. We had another comment, for example, perhaps it wasn't the only, but the last one I remember, which was about Rain of Tears, like pointing out, which I actually had pointed out at some point as well, is really another highlight of earlier show Galneryus, where they had a song of this style which consists of several parts, you know, kind of is constructed like a classical opera, and just has these type of stylistic characteristics we find here as well, but in a still pretty different kind of way as well. Well, yeah, anyway, since there was a surprising lot of interaction with the last song, I just wanted to read some comments here. Yeah, those comments are obviously revolving around Break the Silence. So JLP writes, the song gets better with more listen, very epic song. The Yuki solo is incredible with new MIDI preset sounding. And the next one for me is the best of the album. Yeah, so in the last song he was kind of experimenting a bit with the sound. In this one, probably not, because this sound he has already established at least during the last album, if not before already as well. But I think he's gotten a bit more elegant and intricate with his inclusion of the rock organ during, you know, just sometimes in the background and during transitions and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff packed into this song, which is really cool. We have a comment, the most underrated song from this album. I don't know, perhaps. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the better songs for me. Interestingly enough, I think, you know, if I remember back, The Light of Hope might be actually the weakest song for me so far, simply because it sounds the most generic, if you know what I mean. Not that it's bad, like Galneryus sound is Galneryus sound after all, but you know what I mean, right? So it's kind of interesting that they picked the music video especially for this song, but there might be other marketing reasons for this as well. I think there might be another one. Morph writes, you know what I find interesting about Galneryus is the more you listen to their songs, the more beautiful and intense they become. Probably because everyone in the band is just very talented. I mean, yeah, they practice a bit, you kind of hear that. Also, as they bring out more songs, you begin to notice parts that they have played before, and you get that weird sense of déjà vu. Spooky. Yeah, definitely, right? Especially with Shu in this album. He recycles a lot of stuff at this point. Let's see how that arc will continue. He sometimes brings in a really cool stuff with the sound. Like, again, what I really appreciate about him is also that he always brings in really cool stuff that just sounds really cool. And yeah, that's kind of something you notice if you listen very closely to stuff. Like, I'm kind of a very obsessive music listener. That's probably the reason why I'm doing this channel the way I'm doing it, with this like very strict way of listening to the studio versions first and stuff, because, you know, I'm listening to those songs usually privately over and over again, like extremely often, and I just realized over the time that you will always find like new stuff, even if you have figured out all of the elements which actually play a role, like the way how they interact with them, or the aesthetics they create, or just some ideas the whole product kind of gives you, kind of changes over time, because you also change over time, and you kind of just notice different qualities of the song you might have dismissed before as not important, you know. So that's kind of cool if you listen to stuff again. And this is also, when listening to songs again I haven't listened to for a few years, you will find a lot of new stuff potentially, right? Then we have another comment by Shiro. I just wanted to mention that because it's sometimes really cool that people write very long, you know, texts on either trivia or analysis of the song or something, and this is really cool. I think you can access that little essay under the last video about Break the Silence. And yeah, so much about that for today. There is of course one thing left now, which is the lyrics. Again, Yuki has written them, and if you remember the last Yuki song, very confusing, very symbolic sound, a very clearly different style than Shu, for example, or Sho, or anyone else for that matter in the band. I've also yet to see a song by Lea, by the way. I don't know if he has composed a song already for the band. If you know more about that, please tell me. But yeah, let's move on. It's completely in English, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, sorry, please mention it. So, Day after day, we're drifting alone, night after night, no place to call home. Ruled by forces that never stand still, is this the way we're destined to live? So we have these really extreme house mouse rhymes, but I think that actually fits very well with the cheesy medieval melody we have there, right? So 50 snakes in polished suits, will you climb up shortcuts to the top? We are walking the path of kings. Will show the world that only we can do. Okay, so what is this exactly about? Day after day, we're drifting, right? So I just have to think about this drifting because that's pretty much how the song feels like. And of course, this, this whirling journey, this odyssey, no place to call home. This instability which is created in the song, or in Yuki songs in general, right? I think that might be a really characteristic Yuki thing in general, that he has this, like, he wants to portray this inner instability, which of course leads to a certain restlessness, and this is why his songs are constantly moving somewhere. Ruled by forces that never stand still, so through this medieval epic element, we all, sometimes, have this orchestration in the background, these trumpets, these mighty drums, and all of that stuff, so there's a lot of that royal, powerful energy in it. I don't know about the 50 snakes, but will you climb out shortcuts to the top? I think that might be, there might be a shortcut, but if you think about it practically speaking, if there are shortcuts, some people just realize that the actual gain is waiting on the journey, and if you skip the journey, you kind of lose the essential element of what you're even looking for, perhaps. And we are walking the path of kings. We show the world that only we can do. So we're walking probably the honorable path. We're not taking any shortcuts. Rise up, fight on, stand tall, never be shaken by anything. Strike back, break free. Together we are all one. Yeah, very heroic, reminiscent of earlier Galneryus. But I don't know. That's like probably the pre-chorus, right? So this is then the chorus, I would assume. Fight it through, fight it to the end. We leave no one behind who still waits for us. Fight it through, burn it to the end. Break through it all for good. Just confront what unfolds. Another classic Yuki theme here, I guess. Just confront what unfolds, right? Be open to what comes. Don't force things. And, listen to your inner guiding voice. That stuff we had throughout the last songs. The rest is a bit, classic fighting spirit, see it through type of stuff. Rise up, press on, stand proud, unbroken by anything. Fight back, break free. Together we are all one. So there's a little switch up from up there to here, but kind of a similar pattern. Carry it through, see it to the end. We stand by everyone who holds faith in us. Carry it through, burn it all the way. Break through it all for good. Just confront what unfolds. Here we have a little inclusion of we stand by everyone who holds faith in us. So there we have who still waits for us, which is people who are actually joining on the journey, right? And people who hold faith in us are the ones kind of, cheering and having faith in that path, but actually not walking it themselves. So they kind of including everyone. And then, of course, we have this back and forth with the backing vocals. Fight it through to the last breath. Fight it to the end, to the very end. We'll leave no one behind who still waits for us. Fight it through to the last breath. Fight, burn it to the end, to the very end. Break through it all for good. Just confront what unfolds. There's, of course, a very strong emphasis on this. You cannot know what's gonna come, right? You just have to face what is gonna come. Maybe, another thing why that sound, throws you into new sections all the time, and really tries to create that chaos. It pushes you through that thing, and again, I've mentioned, it kind of refuses to form too much stability. It really wants to portray that confusing journey and wants you to confront that type of confusion and confront what unfolds and stuff. So this really shows in the song. I'm actually surprised the song isn't as complex and as symbolic text-wise. It's really clear, but it is of course very in alignment with the song, right? The song is more confusing, the lyrics are more clear. Perhaps it balances it out a bit. Yeah, so much I have to say about the lyrics, I guess. And we are at the end again, upload schedule. Let's see how that will work out. I've just finished a paper I had to write for, university. I actually wrote about Resident Evil Requiem, some game studies type of stuff. Kind of reminds me of something, oh, is that Raccoon City there in the music video? No, you're f***ing me, that is Raccoon City, right? yeah, I mean, have you played Resident Evil Requiem? I can kind of recommend. It's a pretty good entry for the series. But yeah, I have to write another paper over the next 2 weeks, so it's not completely stress-free or something. But of course, there's always a bit time in between for Galneryus. Again, hope you enjoyed it. Perhaps you'll stumble into the next episode as well sometime. And then I can only wish you a great week. And I don't know, just confront what unfolds, right? Bye.